All right, guys, welcome to episode 2 of the DVC for Adult show. Just to go over again what this is all about. By the way, I am going to share some numbers today to let you know if this is even feasible. Should you buy this? Is it a financial decision or an emotional decision? Keep in mind, I'm a financial guy. That was my career. I'm retired now, but we'll talk about all that. Maybe ease your mind. Now, this is for adults. The reason there's plenty of DV shows out there. My favorite is DVC Fans. So go listen to that. They got a lot of good stuff. All those people live in Florida. I do not. I live in Kentucky. I think I can give you a different perspective. I live in Kentucky, but yet I have been to 14 different Walt Disney World resorts. We also use our points for Alani in Hawaii. Let me show you my shirt here. I wore that today. I had to pull it over my head to show it to you. And sorry for you listening on audio. You didn't have to witness that, but I will try to be descriptive when I look at one short worksheet to try to lay this all out for you and maybe get you interested in it like we have. My first trip to Disney World was in 1972. I was 14 years old. So we'll talk some more about that. But it is aimed at adults because there is a niche out there that doesn't get talked about because we talk about taking kids and we'll take kids. I take my extended family occasionally. So I'll tell you some ideas about that as we progress forward in future episodes. But we've got young adults out there, young married couples maybe that are Disney people and they like to go down occasionally. And the way they approach their vacation is different. Then there's people my age. I'm in my 60s, and 2024, we actually went down 3 times. Now, a couple of those times were very short because it was a night before and a night after a cruise. And the cruises we were doing Royal Caribbean, and they left out of Port Canaveral, which is less than an hour's drive from Walt Disney World. So we did it under that situation. I also went down there and spent 5 nights. We'll talk about what nights are cheaper. We'll talk a little about just what DBC is. DBC, I hate to use the T word, but it is, you can call it a timeshare, but it's based on points. And points differ based on where you stay. For instance, the original DBC property was Old Key West, and that's a beautiful, some of the biggest rooms out there as far as DVC goes, but they don't require as many points because of all the DVC resorts. That's probably the least popular. And one of the most popular, and the one I'll base the analysis on today, is the Polynesian Resort. That's a really cool resort for several reasons. One of it's been there since the place opened in 1971. So, but they've recently added a tower. They call it an island tower. I got to stay in there last year. Actually, I guess it was in January of this year, and I'm going back there in June, next June, and I'm going to base my analysis on June. So don't get nervous about there being worksheets. I'm a financial guy, but it just helped me put the numbers on the page. It is very simple. And like, again, for you audio people, I would just try to describe it as we go. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen so that you can see what I've created. I'm going to, let's see, let's first go. I've got a worksheet pulled up, but I think once I start sharing, I will flip over to the Walt Disney World Resort page. So you are looking at the Walt Disney World Resort page. You can see that I have entered the dates of June 7th, which is a Sunday, through June 12th, which is a Friday. The reason I picked out those days, that's 5 nights. So that's a Sunday check in, a Friday check out. You will find that it uses fewer points if you stay on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday night than if you stay on a Friday and Saturday night. That's just marketing. They know that the rooms on the weekend are more precious, harder to find, more in demand. So they require more points. That's the way Disney does it. So I also entered that we'd have 2 adults and 3 children, as you can see right here. Hopefully, I'm being descriptive enough for the audio people. And of those children, the I put in ages 14, 10, and 3. I guess the family I had in mind decided to wait 3 and 4 years between every kid, but that doesn't matter. But I'm going to click the find room button over here and it's going to roll over and show us our possibilities. Then I'm going to scroll down to the Polynesian. Now, as we go through here, you'll see that all these are available. This is outside of DVC now. So these are the cash prices you would pay. Look at that. Port Orleans is considered a medium range resort. A moderate is the word they use. $336 a night. Let's go down to Art of Animation because that's what I'm going to compare it to. $565 a night. We go down to Polynesian, and that is $755 a night. Now, there's a cheaper rate. That's the rate they're recommending, the rate they're trying to talk you into. So you can see these rooms are not cheap. And yes, it costs a lot of money to go down there, but you are a candidate for DVC if over the next, the Polynesian contract goes away in the 60s and this is the 20s. So you got like 40 years of vacation. We'll talk more about that next week when I get some additional information. But let me click on this Polynesian Village Resort and show you what I'm talking about. When we go there, we page down and you can get that party of five into a theme park view. Look at that. That theme park view per night is $1,070. Let's go down. I think I'm going to price it at a resort view. A resort view means you're going to be looking at the pool or the garden. You can see that is $755 with all that in mind. By the way, these studios are nice. Studios are more of a traditional hotel room, just much bigger than, going to a Holiday Inn or something like that. So you can kind of see in this one, it's got a double bed. Most of them now use Murphy beds out of a couch. So you can sit on a couch, but then a Murphy bed would pull down from that. And a lot of them have recliners that also turn the bed. So that's how you could get 5 people in there. Now, you might be struggling for some restroom time, but and getting in the bathroom, getting ready to go to the park time, but all that goes into consideration. By the way, let me tell you this. In fact, let me go to the worksheet first, and then I'll tell you this. I'm going to flip over to my Excel worksheet. Don't look ahead because I don't want you to be frightened by what you see. And I will tell you now that if you buy a DVC point from Disney, it's $235 per point at Polynesian. I will also tell you when I bought my points, they were $77. Not at Polynesian, but at another resort. And I'll explain why I got them so cheaply. And you can too. I didn't do anything magical. I just, other than research, so this is a Disney Vacation Club break-even comparison. My columns for you, those of you that are not watching this screen, my columns are based on Art of Animation. We're going to compare it to an Art of Animation room. You might think, well, Greg, we're always just going to say in a place. I consider Art of Animation probably the best of the cheap's not the right word, but the lowest level resorts. All Disney resorts are nice. But of all the nice ones and of the lowest level ones like Pop Century, all those guys, I think Art of Animation is probably one of the best. So we're going to use that in our example, and then we're going to compare it to that Polynesian studio that we were just looking at. In fact, I'm going to change this right in front of you because I've got one bedroom up there, and I don't want to do that because you guys can get 5 people into a studio. So I'm going to change my caption on that right there. There we go. Now we're good. This shows you that we are pricing out Sunday through Friday, 5 nights in June. Okay. Art of Animation. I looked up all the cash prices that will cost you $3,108. I tried to include the tax. I just added 10%. I guess that can change based on what you're doing. Now, let's look down at the next line. Let's forget Polynesian right now, okay? Art of animation. Let's say you're perfectly you feel like you're perfectly happy with art of animation type rooms, but you're saying, Greg, I still sure would like to stay in that Polynesian someday. Well, here's how we're going to talk you through it to get you there. Now, there's some big dollars right here. I'm going to tell the audio people what I'm talking about here in just a moment. It will cost you 160 DVC points if you stayed in the Polynesian. So I'm going to compare that 3,108 for Art of Animation to what you pay in points. Yes, that does in fact say $37,600. So if you bought 160 points, which is enough to stay those 5 nights, keep in mind you're buying those. That amount includes the next 40 years, like we were talking about. So if you break it down that way, all of a sudden you can eyeball that and tell that's less than $1,000 a year. But let's do it this way. We're going to say, I'm going to make one change, another change on the fly here. I updated this and then forgot to change some of the words, and it's not important to outline what that is to the audio people. But look, 160 points times $235 is 37,600. Then that next number I calculated for you, 37,600. It would take you 12 trips to Disney World to break even with the art of animation. But of course, you're breaking even, but you're also staying in a nicer room. Let's go over to the Polynesian Studio Tower side, a much, much better room, much more comfortable, much, nice pool, walking distance to, it'd be a long walk. It's the Grand Floridians and Contemporary are the shortest walking distances, but to the Magic Kingdom, or you could ride the monorail. Everybody wants to stay on a monorail resort, right? Well, that would actually cost you, if you paid it in cash, $7,469. So it's more than double what you'd pay art and animation. Well, compare it to that same 37,600 that it would cost you to buy points directly from Disney. And in that scenario, you would break even in 5 trips. So it would take you, if you'd like to stay at the Polynesian from now on and you pay cash, you're going to lose money after your 5th trip versus buying DVC points. That's what this worksheet is showing you. And that's at $235. Now, there's a trick to this. How do we get that $37,600 reduced? Well, there's something called resale. There are sometimes people buy their DVC contract, and for whatever reason, something comes up in their family, they can't use it anymore, so they have to sell it. Well, there's companies that resell DVC points. That's how I bought mine. Well, look, if you go on the resale market right now, the average price for a Polynesian contract, you can see it right here, is $153. You buy those same 160 points, and instead of it costing $37,600, you get that price down to 24,480. And I didn't pay that much. I'm going to talk to you about that here in just a moment. In that case, instead of breaking even in 12 trips, you're breaking even in just under 8 trips if, versus Art of Animation, and just 3 trips versus the Polynesian. So that almost, if you're planning on going 3 trips, it's kind of like a hedge against the prices of the resorts going up. They're going to go up every year. Once you buy these points, you are locked in on your lodging. You never have to spend another dollar on your lodging for your trips from now on. Now, there is a monthly maintenance fee. We'll talk about that in the next episode, but that's typical of every timeshare that's out there. So compared to that Polynesian price, it's the Polynesian cash out of your pocket would cost you 7,469, but if you bought resale points at $153, it's going to cost you 24,480, and you can almost do that math in your head in about 3.5 trips, you have paid off your contract and you don't have to pay any more lodging, even though you're going to do that for the next 40 years from I think it's 2067. Come back. I didn't look all that stuff up this morning. Come back next episode and I'll make sure I have that nailed down. Next episode will be more about the specifics, how DVC works. Last episode was the basics. This one is the financial, and the next one will be about the specifics of how you book, all that good stuff. So that's basically it for this episode. It is more feasible than you think, more logical than you think. Now, you'll say, perhaps, here's where the financial versus emotional side comes in. You might say, Greg, we didn't really want to pay more than about $19,000. Well, then you got a decision to make. You can get pretty easy financing through DVC or through the resale people at good rates to finance this. And you could do it that way. You could do it your own way. You can make an emotional decision. Well, this is going to be so nice. We'll just find a way to come up with that extra $5,000 and you go that way. Besides, the finance companies will make it it's tricky. You don't want to do this too much, but they'll make it as comfortable for you as they can by breaking it down to a monthly payment, which all of a sudden doesn't seem that unrealistic. So that's the worksheet. Let's go back over to the page that I had open for the actual resort itself. That's it right there. So all of that was based on this room right here. I'll pull up some pictures for you. You can see how, up we got music. I better turn that off. So you can, that couch there, they have been refurbed and they now pull out to a Murphy bed. They used to have trundle beds, which are beds that pull out from underneath other beds. So that's basically it for today. Like I say, the next episode, we will talk more about how DVC actually works. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Again, I think this is a different niche than most of the DV shows out there. I hope it is for you. We'll get more and more into the adult side of things as we go because I'm going to one of my gripes about the DVC shows podcast that I do listen to is that they live down there. So it is just different for somebody that lives down there than somebody that's not. So I hope I get that perspective. I also will talk about taking extended families. We've gone down with a party of 12, may go down with a party of 15 here in the next couple of years. But that's it. Hope you've enjoyed episode 2 of DVC for Adults.